Oh hey, so in this video, I thought I'd tell you all about the time I had breakfast with Carice Van Houten, also known as Melisandre from Game of Thrones. Crazy story, and I'll tell you all about it. In order to get to this insane breakfast that suddenly happened out of nowhere, I have to go back to the theater piece, the very first theater piece that I made called Wat Niet Weg Is, or That Which Is Not Gone. I made an entire video about that piece and what it's about, so if you haven't seen that already, make sure to go check it out. But that's a theater piece that I made back in 2017, a couple of years after my dad had passed away. And that piece focuses mostly on missing and loss and grieving. And one of the key elements in that piece, the core element, is a wall that I built out of old VHS cassette tapes. And onto that wall, I project old family videos. We have a lot of old family videos. There's also a YouTube playlist on my channel with a couple of those if you want to check that out. Link at the end of this video or in the description box down below. But anyway, during that performance piece, I really wanted to project those old family videos. We had so many of them, and that's because my dad used to work for Belgian television, and so we had a camera pretty early on. Growing up, he would film everything, and all of our childhood is caught on tape, so we have a lot of footage. I think my dad was scared of losing all these things and not being able to remember it, so he would capture all of those moments, and that's really fun to look at, and I wanted to include that in the theater piece, so I project that onto a wall of VHS tapes. And I can tell you're probably thinking, what's a wall of VHS tapes? Like, how many cassettes are we talking about? And it turns out that in order to have a sort of impressive wall or something big enough to project something onto, you need a lot of cassettes. So I had collected, up until this point, I had collected 600 cassette tapes, and that wasn't enough. So I needed more, and I put out an ad saying that I was looking for old VHS cassettes. They could be, you know, home videos or whatever, it doesn't matter, no one was going to look at them. I just wanted to put them in this wall that I was building. I got a reply from a man from Amsterdam in the Netherlands who, his thing was he would buy houses of people who had passed away, and then he would sell all of the stuff that he found in those houses. And he told me that he had 12 boxes, like huge moving boxes, full of cassette tapes, and that I could have them for about 20 euros. So together with a friend, we went to Amsterdam, we picked up all the cassettes, put everything in the car, and then went home. This was 2017 while I was making the piece, and I started to build the wall, and then it turned out that one of the 12 boxes was full of paper and documents and a little bit of toys, and I didn't know what it was, so I just pushed it aside. I stored it at my grandfather's place because it was a really huge box, and I kind of felt cheated because I thought I'd had 12 boxes full of VHS tapes, but then there were only 11. But I continued building the wall, and eventually I ended up with a wall of about 1,200 cassette tapes, which is already a decent wall to project family videos onto. The cassettes that came from this collection of boxes, they all had handwritten stickers on them, and they were numbered, and it was categorized in a way that I couldn't really quite figure out, but then I wasn't really paying attention because I was just building the wall, right? So I made the piece in 2017, 2018. I still play it to this day when COVID allows. But once I had finished making it and I was touring with it, my grandfather kept asking me to get rid of the one box that was at his place because he said it was in his way. Mind you, he lives alone in a 3-story house, not a really huge house, but still 3-story house, and he's by himself, so I'm not really sure that it really did get in his way, but it is a big box, so I decided I should just take it from him and get rid of it. I picked up the box, I got home, I put it into the recycling corner. I didn't even look at it, it was just full of paperwork anyway, and I wasn't really interested in it. And then at one point my mom saw the box and she opened it and she started looking into it and she said, hey, wait, this belongs to someone, it's a person. All of these papers and documents, they belong to one person. And so we started looking into it, and we found on a couple of the papers, we found the same name every time, and that name was Theodore Van Houten. So I googled the man, and I discovered through Wikipedia that he was a journalist and a musicologist, and that he did research into the use of music in silent films. He had passed away in 2017, which is the year that I had started making the piece, and Wikipedia told me he's the father of Jelka and Carice Van Houten. Both women are actresses, but I was mostly familiar with Carice Van Houten's work, as I had seen her in Game of Thrones and a couple of other movies years back. So I looked up both women online and I sent them a message on Instagram and Twitter thinking it would never really get to them, but I added a picture of the box and some of the documents and a message saying that this box probably belonged to your dad. I don't know, maybe you got rid of it on purpose, but somehow, it ended up with me, and I was wondering if you were interested in getting it back. And you might have, gotten rid of it on purpose, but if it was my dad, I would want to know. Both women actually responded saying, oh yes, please, and we'll get back to this. And then we didn't really end up with a practical conversation of how or when. So about half a year later, I contacted them both again, and I got a reply from Carice only. And she said, yes, I'm still very much interested in the box and I would like to take it from you. And I offered to bring it to her, maybe if she was in the neighborhood. She sent me a message on Instagram saying that she was in the neighborhood. She was in Antwerp for recordings for a new series, and that they only had one day of filming left before she had to go back home. And that was the very next day. And she was going to be having breakfast from 9 to 9:30 in the hotel restaurant lobby thing, and asked me if I wanted to come and join her. So that was pretty cool. I went to Antwerp the next morning, sat in the hotel restaurant, and Carice bought us both breakfast, and I handed over the box with her father's things, and she looked into it and she started crying. And she then really wanted to know everything about me and what I was doing and what I was creating and who my dad was. And I told her about the piece that I was making and about the cassette tapes that I was looking for, and how the piece was constructed and how I got to get that box. And I said, the other boxes I got, maybe they also came from your dad. They were full of VHS tapes that I then used in my performance piece. And I showed her a picture of it, a picture where I project the family videos onto that cassette wall. And she just started crying again, saying that he would have loved what I did with it. And I was a little bit surprised because it did feel like maybe he would not think it was a very respectful way to deal with that kind of collection. But she said, he would have loved this because those cassettes were sort of gold to him. And he tried to digitalize them, but that's a complex and sort of expensive process. And so he was just really scared that all of it would have just been for nothing and would just be lost now. So he would be really happy to see what you did with it. And I told her that she's always welcome to come and see the piece and to look at the cassette wall that is more than half, her dad's collection. And she asked me if I wanted to go see her new movie when it came out and let me know what I thought of it. So that's pretty much the story of how I had breakfast with Carice Van Houten. And it was a beautiful morning. I thought it was a really lovely breakfast. She's such a nice person, and it took about 5 minutes until we just turned into two women who had lost a father and wanted to talk about that to each other and talked about life and just other stuff. I did check with her if they had gotten rid of the box on purpose, because maybe it's just one of the things they wanted to get rid of, and she told me that her sister mostly handled the estate and there was just so much stuff that they had to get rid of. So she might have seen the box, but she didn't remember seeing it, and there were some old toys in there. So she said, either way, it's a sign that this box had to come back, and I'm happy that it did. And I'm also happy that I got to give a piece back, and that he's part of the performance piece now, and so every time I play it, I also think of her and of her dad, and I like that it's just connected to someone who has experienced the same loss in that way, and it's a strange but beautiful coincidence, I guess. At the end, when her driver was there and he took the box to the car and we got up and hugged and took a picture, at the end I also apologized to her for making her cry so much during our conversation and said that I felt bad because now she had to start an entire day of filming. And she said, oh, that's okay, because we're filming a funeral scene today, so I'll manage. Which is also just an added little coincidence that I thought was so strange and so beautiful. It's such a strange story. It's such a beautiful story. I find a lot of comfort in it, and I think I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And I really wanted to share that with all of you. I think it also just proves that sometimes reality is a little bit more strange than fiction. If someone would come up with this kind of story and I would read it, I would think it's a bit much. It's a little bit over the top, it's a bit of a stretch, but reality beats fiction, I guess, every single time. So I take comfort in that, and in this story as well, and in meeting her. So that's it. That's all I wanted to share. If you want to know more about the piece that I talked about, That Which Is Not Gone, there's a link in the description box down below, and there's a link to the old family videos playlist at the end of this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this story. Leave me a comment if you've had any kind of similar strange, beautiful coincidence experiences, because I'd love to know. Leave me a comment. I'd love to read those, and I will see you all again very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye. Peace out.